Morning, Josh. Hey, buddy.
All right. Well, it is 10 o'clock. I want to thank everybody for joining us on Facebook Live and/or Zoom. Quickly, just as a make it a little bit easier for us to field some Q&A, feel free to post any questions or offers of support into the Q&A section of the Zoom platform or over into the running commentary on the Facebook Live app. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about E-SPLOST VI and its importance to the future of Henry County. And real quick, I just want to share with those that are watching that last month, the Board of Directors for the Henry County Chamber of Commerce did vote in support of the E-SPLOST VI referendum and encouraged our community to support it as well. And, you know, there's a number of different reasons why we took that position, but I just want to stress, and I know you're going to hear more about it today, stress the importance of the E-SPLOST VI to workforce development, to transportation and infrastructure improvements within the county, to an enhanced quality of life, and then finally, just to the safety and security of our county's residents, both those students, those teachers that are in those classrooms, but across the county is just a huge piece for safety and security. So, keep that in mind as you go to the polls over the next couple of weeks if you're early voting or in March when you go to the ballot box. But in order to really get some information out there on why we, why we are supporting E-SPLOST VI, we have with us Josh Malcolm and JD Hardin from the school district to talk a little bit about the history of E-SPLOST in Henry County, as well as those projects that are a focus of VI. And then we have with us Mike Griffin, who is chair of, Mike, I am sorry, I had the committee's name in my head as we started, but
Committee for Our Children's Future.
Committee for Our Community's Future, Children's Future, is that correct? All right.
That's right.
And so after we hear from Josh and JD about some of the projects and that, then we're going to talk to Mike a little bit about why it's important for us to get behind this referendum. And so I'm going to go dark for a little bit so that I don't fill up everybody's screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Josh and JD to cover some of the history and the projects. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Joe, and thank you, Gary, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting us. I'm so glad to be able to be with you guys. Of course, along with Josh Malcolm, our Chief Operations Officer, we're excited to share with you all the things that are incorporated into E-SPLOST VI. It's very hard to imagine that we are at this juncture, but you know, going all the way back to 1997 is when things started. And so what we'd like to do for you guys today is start off by telling you a little bit of the history of E-SPLOST, how it came to be. I think it's important to set that foundation and how it's gotten us to where we are today, but we'll talk about some of the accomplishments of, you know, the previous E-SPLOST, and then of course the current one that we are still, you know, collecting. And then I'll turn it over to Josh and let him talk about all the awesome projects that are coming up for E-SPLOST VI. And then of course our wonderful co-host as well, Mr. Mike Griffin, will take us home with you know, just some other words about E-SPLOST and its importance to the community. So without further ado, we'll get started. As you can see, hopefully you can see on your screen, we're going to see things off by into about our board first. Let me first say that, there is a video that we have shared on our Henry County Schools website of Superintendent Davis talking about the importance of E-SPLOST and why now? Why are we looking at it now, even in the midst of currently collecting on E-SPLOST V? And you should take time to go and see that video and what she has to share with the community, because I think it's important to, it lays some good groundwork. Unfortunately, we tried it, we looked at it a little bit earlier. There was a little bit of technical difficulty, so we didn't want to mess up this presentation by wading through video. You guys know how it is in dealing with Zoom and live meetings. But what we'd like to do instead right now is talk about this board of education you see on your screen, this governance team. Now, this governance team was a finalist for the large system Governance Team of the Year as presented by the Georgia School Boards Association. They've done a remarkable job of really steering our school district in the direction it needs to go to be that high achieving, fastest improving school district in the metro area. As you can see, they're responsible for 43,000 students and 6,000 employees. I think many of you know who are tuned in that Henry County Schools is the largest employer in the county. And as such, there's a lot of folks that, live here, but also people who come from outside the community to work here because of the substantial, school system that we have and its great standing throughout the state. But we are so fortunate, again, to have this board working together. And of course, that strategic direction that they're looking to take our district with the voices of our community is so important, and it plays in to E-SPLOST VI, as we're going to talk about. Now, let's talk about E-SPLOST and how it got started. Now, school districts are faced with the challenges of an operational budget, which is consumed by almost 90% of salaries and benefits. So when you take 6,000 employees, 90% of our operating budget does go towards their salaries and benefits to stay competitive against our fellow school districts around the state. So that leaves only a little small piece of the pie to, deal with all the other operational, things like, just basically your utilities and books and things like that, for all of our schools. And so when it comes to maintaining our buildings and expanding, when our growth, happens with student enrollment, without an E-SPLOST, it'd be very difficult to maintain that. And so back in it's not just unique to Henry County Schools. And that's why back in 1996, as you can see, the Georgia voters, along with the legislature, put forth a constitutional amendment, and that constitutional amendment to provide the opportunity for communities to select to tax themselves with an E-SPLOST, a special purpose local option sales tax. That 1 cent sales tax, it did pass on a statewide referendum. And then of course, like other school districts, Henry County jumped at that opportunity to put that before their voters. And overwhelmingly that passed in a ballot measure here locally. And it's been continued ever since 1997. As you can see there, also it's important to keep in mind that each E-SPLOST lasts for a total of 5 years, and we are currently in E-SPLOST V. So just something to keep in mind, a little bit of history, a little bit of fun fact. Important to know what E-SPLOST funds, those pennies, that 1 cent sales tax can be used for. So every dollar that's spent in Henry County, 1 penny goes towards education. There's another E-SPLOST that goes towards the county, but this 1 penny goes towards public education. Now, it can be used for capital projects, buildings, technology, learning resources and equipment, transportation, those types of items. What it cannot be used for, and we want to make sure people understand this too, can't be used for salaries, can't be used to pay people's salaries or their benefits. And that was very explicit when this was constructed or adopted way back in the mid 90s. So we also like to, again, you can see over there, what it looks like, the 90% of our current operating budget and where that goes toward. That's why E-SPLOST comes in. That's the role it plays to help with our infrastructure costs. So let's move along. Now, who supports E-SPLOST? The good news is it's a very fair tax. Anybody, we like to say, to simplify it, anyone who eats, sleeps, shops, or has a business in Henry County really supports E-SPLOST. So all those people traveling down from Michigan all the way down to Florida, all those snowbirds, down to I-75, they help pay for our schools. Anybody that's coming for the race, which will soon be coming to Atlanta Motor Speedway, we just got through with the Daytona 500, so Atlanta's not far off the list. or the schedule, those people will help support our schools. People who come in for baseball tournaments, which is fastly becoming one of the largest draws for visitors into our county, those folks pay for schools and they help support our schools. And so we're very, very fortunate to have this. And a little fun fact is that since E-SPLOST started back in 1990, the first collections in 1998, we approved it in 97, we started collections in 98. Since that time, 62 billion pennies have been collected to help support schools in Henry County. So as you can see, we had to keep pace with our growth. Since 1999, you can see that we went from a student enrollment of around 21,000 to just 10 years later, we doubled our enrollment. That's substantial. It's not lost on many people who are on this this call today, or those who are tuning in, that Henry County has grown exponentially and was once listed, and I believe is now relisted as one of the fastest growing counties in the U.S. That's substantial. And of course, we have to have the building capacity to be able to house all the students who will be enrolling in our school district. And so you can see from 1999, we went from 21,000 students to then 10 years later, 40. And we've had a moderate growth over those next 10 years, but we know that we're ramping up and starting to see more growth come into our area. And so we'll hit that building boom again. But you can see the number of schools also had to keep pace. And I believe since 1998, we have constructed with E-SPLOST funds close to 40 different buildings across our district. So a big number right there. And Josh, I believe you had another fun fact. Are you there?
So I always like to pause on this slide when I'm doing the presentation a little bit, just to let you know that when the growth really started to hit us in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had close to 800 trailers within the system for student growth. We are currently down to 48 trailers for students. And with this E-SPLOST VI plan, we will eliminate all current trailers being used for Henry County schools. So I always like to throw that out. That's kind of a big deal for a system as large as ours to not be so reliant on trailers. And a lot of systems that are bigger, that are experiencing growth, that's what they have to do. So through that planning and through the previous SPLOST, we've been able to whittle down that number, and we're really excited about being able to eliminate the current trailers that are in use through SPLOST.
Without a doubt. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that that tidbit as well. Most definitely. We want people to be inside of our buildings, not, with, the growth that happens that forces us into those trailers. So we'll be glad to get out of the trailering business, with our students here soon. So moving along, I think it's important to, articulate to, everybody in the community that's interested, the projects that have been accomplished through previous E-SPLOST. So we're going to take you through that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Josh, so Josh can talk about what's on tap for E-SPLOST VI. So let's start with E-SPLOST I. Now, the very first E-SPLOST, as you can see there, resulted in the construction of 6 new schools. We also had a couple of renovations and a couple of other, items there, like a new middle school gym that was at Henry County, the former Henry County Middle School. But I also want to point your attention to the fact that throughout these E-SPLOST, you'll see some common purchases. Buildings, yes, are one thing, but you'll also see technology listed multiple times. You'll see general repairs like roof repairs, HVAC repairs, those types of things. You'll also see an eye towards the future with land acquisition. A lot of these buildings that you'll see in subsequent SPLOST are built upon land that was purchased in previous SPLOST. So we always have an eye on future growth, and that's why you'll see some of these land acquisitions. You also see, instructional resources and those type things. So I won't go through everything, but I just wanted to remind you guys that you'll see some of these common themes throughout the E-SPLOST. So you'll see right here, those 6 schools and 2 renovations. Now moving into E-SPLOST II, that next 5-year period, that second, again, an overwhelming support from the voters, a continuation of that 1 cent sales tax, no new tax. We had 8 schools that were constructed. You'll see more projects as we go along because, again, the growth of the county mirrors that. So there's a correlation. And you'll see that 8 new schools were constructed, 2 additions were completed throughout the county. We also had some gym flooring that had to be replaced at our elementary schools. And then the office that we're currently sitting in for the district administrative offices, this was a former school and it was renovated as a part of E-SPLOST II. And while that's important, you'll see something about district administrative offices in the upcoming E-SPLOST. E-SPLOST III, we're moving right along. We're really hitting our stride. You've got 4 new schools constructed, 4 renovations and additions that were throughout the county, really spread out. And as you see, through these lists and these schools that are on the screen, they do touch every corner of our county, and that's important. We don't want people to think it's just one area. It does get spread across the district. You also see some more like a media retrieval system, you see some bus purchases. One of the things that we want to make sure is that our students have great transportation to get to and from school. And of course, we have to keep pace with that. We get very little, if no money from the state for our transportation costs. So E-SPLOST has really been of great benefit to our transportation services. You also see now a focus on security. Security is a huge point. You'll see that in the E-SPLOST VI project list, but we really want to make sure that safety and security is paramount for our schools, so we have the greatest learning environment for all of our students and our employees. E-SPLOST IV, only 1 new school, but we did have 4 building additions. One of those being in addition to the Academy for Advanced Studies, just a hallmark of our school district, and thanks to the support of the chamber and the E-Squared initiative, we really were able to take this project and get it off the ground. And it really has become something that has been a draw for not only our students, but our business community. It's been remarkable, the response that they've given to our Academy for Advanced Studies, because it also benefits them. We have a great partnership with all of our businesses, and thanks to the chamber and its supporters, we're able to really make this academy one of the premier academies, college and career academies in the state. You also see a strong focus on school renovations and updates. We completed 14 in this E-SPLOST. In the subsequent E-SPLOST, we had 35. So every school got touched across E-SPLOST 4 and 5 to update their buildings substantially to keep them looking as great as they do and almost brand new. And so we're very appreciative of the operations division and the work they do to make sure our buildings stay in tip-top shape. You also see, again, middle school gym. Anybody who's ever been at a concert, middle school gym, and kind of in those warmer months, it gets kind of hot in there. So we were able to add some AC to those buildings. You also see the security doors. Great feature for our schools to really ensure that safety and security for all of our students and staff. And of course, many of those other repeat items that you see right there. Then now it brings us to E-SPLOST V, and that's what we're currently in. The collection on E-SPLOST V will conclude, those pennies will conclude on, 2022, but that doesn't mean that we haven't been able to accomplish all of our projects so far. And Josh will be able to tell you that we just, got it approved, and we're working through, we're working through the last major construction project, which is a warehouse. And once we complete that, all of our E-SPLOST V projects will have been accomplished. That's remarkable. Everything we put before the voters, we've accomplished. And I think that speaks to the transparency that, is inherent upon us. And we want people to make sure that they understand that when we put this before you and ask you to, and put it out there for your consideration and voting, it does get completed. But you can see here, 2 replacement schools, McDonough High School and Middle School, a brand new sparkling addition on the north side of the county with our Performing Arts Center, which is just phenomenal. In this SPLOST, it's hard to believe where we would be without the purchase of the student learning devices. When the pandemic hit, we didn't buy student learning devices for a 1-to-1 ratio, of 1 computing device per student, and the same for our teachers. We didn't do that with the pandemic in mind, but thankfully we had those available and at our disposal, so that when that hit, we were able to, with little interruption, transition over to a remote environment to really keep the learning going at a high level when other school districts, unfortunately, were struggling and looking for resources. We were able to keep going and adjust as needed to make sure that our students continued learning. You also see synthetic turf at all of our fields, more buses, and then of course 3 big building renovations that were included as a part of this. And also we've had some enhancements to our energy management system to really result in some good savings across the district. And that completes E-SPLOST V. Now, as we move into E-SPLOST VI, and Josh goes into those lists, it's really important to remember that the items that are listed on E-SPLOST VI on that project list are a direct result of the voices that we heard, thousands of voices through strategic planning meetings all across our district, in our schools, in our communities, back, this time last year and a little bit before, to get us to this list. This is a reflection of the community's wants, the community's needs, and we're excited to be able to put this list forward for consideration by the voters. And I'll turn it over to Josh at the moment.
Yeah, so good afternoon again. I'm Josh Malcolm, Chief Operations Officer for Henry County Schools, and I wanted to back up just a minute for the E-SPLOST V list. JD touched on a little bit, but to let you know that we will complete all of our projects that were a part of E-SPLOST V this summer. The distribution facility is the last project of a construction project for E-SPLOST V. So we're always proud that when we bring it to the voters, what they vote on us to move forward with, we get done. So we will complete those projects this summer. We've got a few of the multi-purpose facilities that will actually complete either in February or March, and then a renovation to our existing Performing Arts Center is underway. It will be completed in March, and then the distribution center will be completed at the end of the summer. So real proud to get those projects completed to the community and as we start to E-SPLOST VI. And the other thing I wanted to touch on real quick as we go into the projects, you heard JD talk about it just a little bit, but we did a lot of district strategic planning around this time and late 2019 to really reach out to the community through community surveys, advisory meetings, community conversations, things like that, to really get a sense of what the community wanted to see as themes as we move forward in our E-SPLOST program. And of course, the growth projects will always be a part of E-SPLOST, but there are other things that show up in E-SPLOST too that we heard from the community. And you're going to see some of those projects as we go through what we're proposing for E-SPLOST VI. Themes such as additional safety, always at the top of the public list, technology enhancements, transportation upgrades, heard that a lot, STEM opportunities, and then fine arts enhancements and things like that. Those really started to show up as we were talking to the public about what they wanted to see. So I'll just go through some of those real quick and then be available for any questions. The first that you see is the safety and security. We always hear that when talking to the community. So as part of E-SPLOST VI, we're proposing an access control system for each of our schools in the school system. You might recall when we completed McDonough High and Middle, we piloted an access control system for both of those schools. We have great success with it. What it means is there'll be a buzzer at the front door. All doors will be locked now. There will be cameras both at the front door and in the admin so that the administrative staff can let a guest into the facility. And then from there, they'll have to let them into the rest of the building as well. So a safety enhancement that has really worked well at McDonough High and Middle that we'll be bringing to the rest of our schools as part of E-SPLOST VI. And then in technology, like JD said, where would we be right now without the one-to-one devices that were bought for all of our students and our staff as part of E-SPLOST V? Those devices are around 5 years old at this point, so we really need to do some refreshment for both our students and our staff moving forward, and that will be a part of this E-SPLOST VI initiative. And then transportation, JD talked about that a little bit. We have been able to buy buses in our previous E-SPLOST initiatives, but not at the rate which we will accelerate as part of E-SPLOST VI. We plan to add 25 new clean fuel air-conditioned buses each year of the E-SPLOST VI program. So that's 125 new buses that will really start to replace some of our aging fleet. Won't replace all of them, but we like to do it over a period of time so it doesn't come all due at the same time. So you will see that as part of E-SPLOST VI. And we are proposing a new bus maintenance facility. We're going to renovate our current, but our current is really small for the system we have become. We have 8 maintenance bays currently, really not enough for a system our size. So we're proposing to build a second one on the other side of the interstate, the western side of the interstate. You guys know we have a large landmass as far as the county goes. So that will really help some of our schools on that side that don't have to come all the way across the county for maintenance. And then when that one's complete, we will jump back in and renovate the existing. We're kind of landlocked over there right now, so we won't be able to expand that one, but we do already own the land for the new maintenance, the transportation facility. Actually behind Oakland Elementary School, we own 11 acres right now. So that's where we're proposing for that facility to be. And then moving down into some of the things that you might not think about as far as a E-SPLOST program. You always think about the building, but these are so important to us as well. So instructional resources for teachers and learning resources for students. along with intervention tools, will be standards aligned in all 4 content areas, in addition to world languages, CTAE, fine arts, health PE, and more. So we'll get a balance of that digital and print resources through our E-SPLOST VI program. Another thing we heard it from the community, fine arts is such a strong component of educational experience. Proposed in E-SPLOST VI is the purchase of instruments for growth and replacement in current school programs, instruments for new programs across the district, and equipment for choral, music, visual arts, and theater classes at all levels. So we will now have band and orchestra programs will be expanded to all of our middle school and high schools. Another thing we heard through our strategic planning was robotics. So it's really taken off across our district, and to meet this interest, course materials will be purchased for every school in our district for robotics. And then into the construction, wanted to pause here for just a minute. We also did a classroom utilization study at the same time we were doing the district strategic planning, and it really helped. We do yearly projections as well, but it really helped to have an outside group come in and look at our county, look at the growth. Where's the growth happening? We know it's happening almost everywhere. And then what capacity do we have in our current schools to deal with that growth? So we know some schools, we have the opportunity for more capacity. In other schools, we're at the limit for that. So this really helped us in identifying the schools that needed some growth projects in this next E-SPLOST VI. Doesn't mean the other schools at some point in future E-SPLOST won't do the same thing, but these were our most critical needs at this juncture for growth projects. So you see construction in earlier E-SPLOST was a main focus. Obviously, JT went through that. That's going to continue. There are 5 proposed new construction projects, with 3 of those being new schools. A new STEM high school will be constructed in the community's growing interest in STEM opportunities for students. We heard that a lot in the district strategic planning. STEM was always at the top of the list on that. 2 elementary schools are also proposed to help alleviate overcrowding currently at Wesley Lakes Elementary and Oakland Elementary. We have land between those 2 schools right now for an elementary school, and then we need to alleviate some overcrowding right now at Locust Grove Elementary and Unity Grove Elementary. We also already own the land through land purchases that JD talked about in previous E-SPLOST. So we will build those 2 elementary schools as part of E-SPLOST VI. And then there are also plans, JD mentioned this too, district administration building. As our schools are growing, so is our admin. So we already have trailers behind our admin facility right now. We also utilize 2 residential houses right next to it. And we have approximately 160 staff members that are currently in schools that we should probably be in our main office and are taking away classroom space right now. So we plan to renovate the existing facility. We're not moving out of that facility, but also build a space next to it for the continued growth of our admin, and not really continued growth, but what we're experiencing right now. We've simply run out of space there. And then as far as school expansions, again, with the growth, 6 schools that have been identified as needing expansions due to current anticipated growth in their areas: Dutchtown High and Middle, Locust Grove High, Ola High and Middle, and Union Grove Middle will receive expansions in this E-SPLOST. Just real quick, so that was part of the classroom utilization study, and we really already kind of knew that due to the fact that we have trailers at most of these schools currently. So we're kind of at the end of what we can do. So we are proposing expansions at these schools because when the schools were designed, they were designed to accept additions before we had to take other measures. So all of these will receive that expansion. And then as we move through this next E-SPLOST, we will look at other schools for that same model. You might recall we've done the expansion at the middle school at Eagles Landing Middle School already. We've done the expansions for the high schools at Eagles Landing High School and Stockbridge High School. That was done as part of E-SPLOST IV. So we know that model works. It's really the fastest way for us to deal with growing population, and the schools were designed to accept it. So we really feel like that's a good step to take as part of this E-SPLOST VI. And then some other things we also heard from the community, more communication. They wanted to hear from us. You've ridden by some of our schools. Our signs are dated at this point. They're the old sandwich board signage. So we heard that a lot. I've heard from principals on that too. So we will be replacing all of those with new electronic marquees for every school in the district. We'll continue to use the monument signage. We'll just incorporate the new electronic into that. And lastly, you can see school maintenance system upgrades. We have a maintenance department, but these kind of projects fall outside of that, these are the bigger type projects, and they're the projects that are really on a schedule with us. We know when they come due to be replaced. It's really what we need to do to continue that maintenance program for our existing schools. So you see, we're going to replace roofing at 10 of our schools, HVAC replacement at 8 of our schools, and then in our energy management program, we will enhance that at 15 of our schools as part of E-SPLOST VI. And then I don't know, JD, if you want me to go over this, you can go over this, but you can see early absentee voting actually starts next Monday. And so you can vote early, or you can go to the election day on Tuesday, March 6th. So I'm going to stop talking now and turn it back over to JD. And I think he wants to turn it over to Mike to speak a little bit.
Yeah, this is a perfect segue now to introduce Mr. Mike Griffin and let him take us home with the last round out of E-SPLOST VI.
Thank you, guys. It's an exciting group of projects that the school system has proposed. I'm working with a group of community leaders, business people, concerned parents that want to make sure that we have the support in the community needed to pass this referendum. This is a tax that we vote on every 5 years. This is a renewal of the 1 cent sales tax that we've been utilizing since the late 1990s to keep up with our growth. You've seen all the schools that were built over the last 20 years. We are now a large system, and it looks like we're going to continue to grow. So we have to keep up with that growth. And also, not only do we need to get bigger, we've got to continue to get better. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about in this list of projects. It's investing in our current programs and expanding existing programs. Things like making sure every middle school and every high school has an orchestra, a fantastic opportunity for young people to develop skills, to be part of something positive, and to grow as people, and to take something with them when they leave school. We are a big system. We are a good system, a solid system. And these type projects will continue to make sure that our schools look good, that they're safe, and that we will continue to attract businesses and people into our community. We want our home values to be strong. We want new businesses to come here because they know we have a solid school system. That's why this vote is so important. But I want to be realistic. I know we're all tired. It was a long political season last year, and voting and going to the polls was challenging. But we need to buck up and get ready to vote one more time, because it's critical to our current students and critical to our future. There's a couple opportunities. You know, the standard way to vote used to be to show up on election day, get in line and vote. And that's certainly available to you. That will be countywide on March 16. But you also have the opportunity to vote early. At some of our standard locations, we are opening, or the county is opening offices on February 22nd. That will be available for 2 weeks. In addition to the Monday through Friday voting, there will be a Saturday voting opportunity on Saturday, March 6th. And then lastly, for those who aren't comfortable with going to the polls right now, or who are going to be out of town during a big chunk of that period, you can call the county voting office and request an absentee ballot. And if you'll grab your pen, I'll give you that phone number. You can call county registration and voting at 770-288-6448. 770-288-6448. If you're going to vote by absentee ballot, I encourage you to call now, early, because they have to send you a document. You have to fill out, sign, and return that document. Then they send you a ballot, and then you have to return the ballot by March 16. So if you're going to vote absentee ballot, get on it, because it's going to take a couple weeks for all that to occur. I served on the school board in 2012 to 2016. I know the amount of deliberation and planning that goes into looking at what's needed for our county and planning for the future. I love this group of projects. I think it reflects our current needs and our future possibilities. I urge you to vote. I urge you to vote yes for this SPLOST. It's going to be great for the county. It's going to continue to keep us moving in the positive directions that we're currently moving. And I think it's going to continue to strengthen our community, and we'll all be proud of what we've done together. I want to thank the Chamber for this opportunity to inform everyone about the SPLOST. I look forward to speaking to many of you as we continue to make presentations. Please let us know any concerns that you have. And there's a couple ways to communicate with us. We have a website. Our website is henryesplost.com. That's a good place to look over the projects and get other information. And then you can join the conversation at our Facebook page at Henry E-SPLOST VI. At Henry E-SPLOST VI. Join the conversation, support what we're trying to do together, and please go vote yes on March 16 or prior. Are there any questions?
I'm going to jump in as we go through some of these questions. I want to thank you three gentlemen for joining us this morning, because this, as I said when we started, from the business community standpoint, this is so important from a workforce development perspective. You know, we talked a bit about the STEM high school, about the learning resources. You know, you highlighted the one-to-one electronics, and nobody saw 2020 coming the way it did. And if we didn't have that in place, we would be so much further behind than where we are right now, because of the foresight of these the great leaders of the past. And so I know in previous discussions about SIX, all of the research, and JD, I believe you touched on it a bit today with the focus groups and the strategic planning. So I know that there's a great deal of thought that's gone into this. So I commend you all for not just jumping forward because, oh, you know, we want to redo it. It's time to redo it. Let's redo it. And then we'll figure out what we're doing. So JD, just a quick question. How much does 62 billion pennies weigh?
Well, let me get out my tiny scale right here. A lot.
It's amazing. And I think what none of us can stress enough to anybody watching this or anybody voting, this relieves property taxes. Because what we're able to do both with SPLOST and E-SPLOST, and I know that there's other conversations around that, but we have a great deal of visitors, as you mentioned, that come through here on 75 heading north and south. And when they stop for items, when they're stopping to eat, these visitors are also supporting the projects of E-SPLOST and SPLOST. And so it does relieve a lot of that burden from Henry County residents. And so it just, to me, coming from Illinois, where I think when I looked at the property taxes up there, there were like 14 different taxing bodies on a property tax bill that we would get. This is just so much easier to handle and to see the improvements that we all see. For some, I know Dutchtown is a huge area of growth and need for the schools. And I know we talked about OLA, but if I didn't hear my local middle school or high school in my cluster mentioned, where would I go to find out if there's projects for that school?
Great question, Joe. The good news is that, depending on where your children go to school or where you have an interest throughout our county, you can go to any one of our school websites. And right there on the right-hand side above the headline section, you'll find a link to this presentation. But each presentation has actually been a little bit modified for that school by way of the slides that we just shared with you. At the very end, there's a slide that speaks directly to that school's project list. Of course, all of our schools are getting those 4 foundational pieces: the safety and security, transportation, technology, instructional resources. Everybody's getting those. But there are some other projects that are being received at each school. And so there's a specialized, graphic that highlights that. There's also a 1-pager that you can see also on there. So there's 3 different links on that specific school's website that you can find out what that school is receiving. And everybody's receiving something. So that's a positive note for everybody across the county.
Yeah, and I would just real
great.
quick, if I could add to that, we did a presentation December 14th to our board. Also, it goes into more depth about the projects. And then at the end of the presentation, that we've actually gone ahead and done a schedule for throughout our E-SPLOST VI. So you can see when all projects are scheduled to be done as well. So we go through all 5 years for the transportation and the growth projects and the STEM high school and things like that to show you when they're scheduled to be done. So it's not just a project list. We've already thought through the entire schedule for E-SPLOST VI and when we will complete those projects. So that is available on our website as well. If you go to board agendas, you can look at that as well. And all of the presentation materials are a part of that as well. So it's out there for viewing.
Thank you. And Josh, to that point, there was a question in the, I think it was Jerry that asked the question about the orchestra in the missing schools. Or I guess the schools aren't missing, but they're missing orchestra. When is that part of that timeline that those schools would get orchestra?
So I don't have the specifics on the timeline for that, but what I can tell you as part of E-SPLOST VI is that all middle school and high schools will receive those materials for an orchestra program. So while we don't currently have it at all our middle school and high school, the plan is as part of those instructional materials to get that at those middle and high schools. I just, working on the operations side, I don't have the schedule for those educational type programs, but the money has already been allocated for that moving forward as part of our E-SPLOST VI. So it will be a big part moving forward, the fine arts programs.
Wonderful, thank you. Mike, one quick last question for you. If I am a voter in Henry County or I am a business in Henry County and I want to support you and the committee and E-SPLOST VI, whether I want to sign, whether I want to send you guys $500 or $1,000 or anything like that to help you get your message across the finish line, where do I look? Where do I go? Who do I call? What can I do to help?
The easiest thing is to email me directly. And I've got an easy email, MikeNMcDonough@gmail.com. If you would like a yard sign, or if you'd like to make a donation, or if you need help with your voting situation, email me. I'll get you in touch with the people that you need to be in touch with or get you the information that you need. MikeNMcDonough@gmail.com.
Wonderful. And if I'm part of an organization, I know I've given your name out quite a bit recently, but if I'm part of an organization or an HOA or anything that I want to hear more about E-SPLOST VI and why I need to support it, I can reach out to you as well.
Reach out to me or touch our website. We've got a great website, henryesplost.com. A lot of good info there. If you don't see what you need, holler back at me or click on one of the links.
Wonderful.
And Joe, if I can add in real quick, I'd invite our folks that are tuning in today to share out that we'll be sharing out more information about some upcoming virtual town hall meetings with each one of our board members for their respective districts. So it's another great opportunity to hear what's happening in a respective district that you may be a part of. And so we're excited to be having those. First one will be next Monday on the 22nd with Mr. Mackenzie McDaniel representing District 2. So stay tuned for more information on those.
Wonderful, wonderful. I thank everybody that's joining us, whether Zoom, Facebook Live, or however. I commend your interest in this. As Mike said, a lot of us are exhausted, but this is a great opportunity to continue the great assets that Henry County has. And so please do your part. Make sure that you're checking out the facts, that you're not believing the rumors that you're seeing out on social media. Nothing more frustrating than seeing all that fly around. But if you do have questions, please reach out to Mike, reach out to me, or any of us here at the chamber. And if we don't have the answer, we'll definitely get that answer to you. And as JD starts pushing those other forums, and that we'll definitely be sharing them on our on our social media, both Twitter and Facebook. So if, follow any one of us, follow all of us. Sometimes we're even funny. We try. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I know you're all busy, and I know Josh and JD, you guys are on break. So thanks for coming in and joining us this morning, and anything we can do to help promote, getting this word out there for y'all, please let us know. And it's our pleasure to work with every one of you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Gary. Really
Appreciate you guys.
it. Thanks, guys. Bless you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Be safe.